Thank you everybody for coming. This is Rightsizing from the Inside Out. This is a year-long journey. We're literally starting from the inside and right-sizing on our way outward. We're so honored to have Devin back with us today as our presenter. So today we're going to be talking about time management. We need to have a different kind of conversation around time management. There are infinite apps, tools, hacks, tricks, machines meant to help us save time. Yet so many folks are still on the brink of burnout. We all know the answer to our busy beaver problem: do less. It's simple, but it's not easy. So instead of giving you a listicle of time-saving hacks and tricks, this month's Rightsizing from the Inside Out will ask us to look at time management in a brand new light. And our fearless leader for this is Devin Lee, online business manager. She's the only certified online business manager in Portland. We're very proud to know her. She partners with business owners on their company's vision. She provides high-level support, freeing up business owners to focus on the parts of the business that inspired them to start their businesses in the first place. In her free time, you'll see a photo of this, Devin loves to roller skate, listen to podcasts, explore the best places to eat sushi in Portland, and make new friends, like today. Devin, we're so excited to have you.
Thank you, Whitney. I am so excited to be here. Let me share my screen and we can get started. Oops, that's the wrong button. Present. Okay, can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so as you all probably know, I can't see the Zoom chat, but Whitney and Minda are going to be monitoring it for me. If you have questions along the way, we can try to address them. So yes, my name is Devin Lee. I'm a certified online business manager. I want to talk to you today about time management. I am super passionate about time management. I think it's really important, and I think no one teaches you how to have good time management. And I have noticed that a lot of my loved ones, clients, colleagues, friends, family, everyone, a lot of people really struggle with it, and it is hard for everyone when that happens. So I first of all want to thank you for coming and sharing this space with me and taking the time to talk about time management with me. Okay, so first, if you don't already know me, I just want to talk a little bit about me. As Whitney said, I'm the only certified online business manager in Portland. I might be the only online business manager in Portland. I have yet to meet another one, but there's not another one in the certified directory. So that is something that I love to do. I am from Florida, but I consider Portland my home. As you can see, I really love roller skating. And on the Enneagram, I am a type 7. We're going to talk a little bit about the Enneagram. It's a personality typing. If you already know what it is, we should be friends because I love talking about the Enneagram. If you don't and you want to learn more after this presentation, let's talk about it. It's something I'm also passionate about. As you can see, I put my contact info in the chat. It's also at the bottom of the screen. I love making new friends. So if you want to talk about any of these things more, send me an email. That also being said, I could talk about time management forever. I could probably make a whole presentation on each of these slides. There's a lot to cover. So again, if you have any questions or further thoughts, let's talk after this. Okay, so let's talk about today's agenda. First, we're going to do a little intro. Then we're going to talk about getting into the mindset. And then we're going to talk about what I think are the steps to having ultimate time management good practices. And then we're going to talk a little bit about tips, tools, and self-care. As Whitney mentioned in the intro, I will, if we have time at the end, I'll talk about the tips and the tools. But honestly, like if you're like me and you've already scoured the internet for all like the cool life hacks on how to manage your time better and pack more in, I think that's already out there. And I think when we talk about those things, we're skipping a few steps in the middle. That's why I leave it for last. And there's also a PDF that will be sent after this presentation that has all of the tools and tips and resources that I cover in that PDF. So don't worry, you're going to get all those after this presentation. Okay, Peter Drucker once said, "Until we can manage time, we can manage nothing else." So first I want to talk about why I personally am passionate about time management. This is a photo of me at the age of 19 at Disney having the best time. I cut off the bottom of the photo to protect the identity of the children I'm dancing with. I don't know who they are. We met that day on the dance floor. I'm from Florida. Growing up, every year our family vacation was to Florida, or sorry, to Disney. In Florida, and I loved Disney. I still love going to Disney. It makes me feel really good and warm and fuzzy inside. And the only thing I hated about going to Disney when I was little is that my mom had this super strict schedule. We were eating at this time and going to a show at this time and going on this ride at this time. And we had to follow a schedule and we would not be able to deviate. And, you know, me as a little kid, I hated that because my eyes would just see all these other things that I wanted to do and I wanted to do them now. And it was really hard for me to follow the schedule and I hated it. And I always thought when I'm a grown up, I'm going to go to Disney. I'm going to do whatever I want, whenever I want. Well, I got my chance in 8th grade for the first time because in Florida, anytime there's like a big night, like for me, it was grad night in 8th grade, then you go to either Universal Studios or Busch Gardens or Disney. And so we were going to Disney and I was so stoked that I could finally just do whatever I wanted at Disney. So I got on the bus and I got there and you can guess what happened. I did like 25% of the things I normally do. I spent the whole time like getting lost. I didn't know what any of the shows were. I was just waiting in line the whole time. I did not plan my day. And in that moment, I realized my mom wasn't just being controlling for fun. That was probably like a bonus for her. She was being controlling because she, you know, Disney is really expensive and she wanted to squeeze all the fun out for us in that day as much as possible. And so from that day to this day, whenever I do go to Disney, I make sure to go with someone who knows the park really well and we have a schedule and we have a plan. And I kind of started living my life that way also. So what does that mean? Life is short. There are so many things we want to do in our life. We're all vivacious people with big goals and lots of things to do. We have only a certain amount of time to do them. We don't even know how much time we have to do them. And so from my perspective, being in control of your time means that you are able to do more of the things that you love. Okay, so first we need to talk about like, what does it even mean to have poor time management skills? One way to think about poor time management is that you're not completing your tasks on time, or maybe you're not even completing them at all. That's one way to look at it. I would like to say a more accurate description from my point of view is maybe you are completing tasks, or maybe you're not, irrelevant. But if you feel stressed about your time, overwhelmed, burnt out, it doesn't matter if you're getting things done if you don't feel good doing it, because what's the point? So let's go back in time. I first want to ask if anybody knows where the 40-hour work week came from. Does anyone want to venture to guess if you already know, or tell me if you already know where the 40-hour work week might have come from?
Nope. I have no idea.
All right, I'll tell you. So during the Industrial Revolution, when it first started, the evil factory overlords had no rules whatsoever. They could work us as hard as they wanted for as long as they wanted. We were working like 16-hour days, 6 days a week. It did not feel good and nobody liked it. So these labor organizations fought to change that. That is a whole fascinating story on its own, all the labor movements that have happened in our country. And it wasn't until, I believe, 1916 that we got the 8-hour work day. And it wasn't until 1937 that we got the 40-hour work week. So what does that mean? It means that we haven't re-established or re-evaluated the 40-hour work week in over 100 years. And also, where did we get this 40 hours from? That's not based on like research or science. We kind of just decided like, oh, any more doesn't feel good. Can we do less than 40 hours, please? So the 40-hour work week, the 8-hour day, I see as like a random number that we don't have to hold ourselves to. So in this moment, maybe if you feel comfortable even putting in the chat, I'd like you to think about, what does your ideal work week look like? And when it comes to the amount of time you work. And I also want to acknowledge that like everyone's responsibilities are different. Everybody has different financial stress. Everybody has different autonomy over their schedule. I work for myself. I can make my own schedule. For me, my ideal work week is like 25 hours, 25 hours a week. If I work less than that, I feel like, ooh, kind of not productive. If I work a lot more than that, I get really stressed out. I don't have time to do the things that I love. Sometimes I obviously have to work more than that, but when I do, I know that 25 hours is my baseline that I'll return to. And when I work more than 25 hours a week, it's for a specific reason that I chose. For example, making this presentation, I worked really hard on it, so I put in some extra hours. But I know what my baseline is.
So Devin, we're getting a lot of people like the 30 hours a week is ideal.
Nice.
35 from one person, 25 from another. But most respondents are 30 that are sharing.
Nice. Yeah. See, no one likes working 60 hours a week. Some people do, but you know, most of us don't need the 40-hour work week. Most of us are not productive working 8 hours a day. All right. So now, with a little intro, now I'd like us to get into the mindset. This is a part that I think we often skip when we're thinking about time. David Allen, who's like the daddy of productivity, I love all of his books. He says, you can do anything, but not everything. Okay. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, there are a few reasons this might be happening. Maybe you have the time to do all the things, but aren't making the best use of it. Or more commonly, maybe you commit to way more time than you actually have. That's the one that I see more often. Regardless of the reason that you're feeling out of control with your time, or maybe you feel like you don't have a grip on your time, if this happens consistently and you consistently don't feel good about where your time is going, I would like to venture and say that you might be addicted to your poor time management habits. So what does it even mean to have an addiction to poor time management? Well, you know, from my perspective, what I could consider like baseline addiction is doing something over and over again that like maybe feels good in the moment, but the consequences don't feel good. We keep doing it anyways. But when you dig deeper into when we're addicted to something, it's when we're not fully aware of our true selves, and maybe we're using something to cope with that. As I mentioned before, like we are not trained on how to have good time management skills. And we're also taught, our society teaches us that our value comes from external things like being productive and being busy. And so, for example, being hyper productive could be a way to feel in control in a world full of chaos. Sorry, my slide's not moving. Hold on. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, guys. My slides are not moving. Give me 1 second. So
I just
weird.
want to thank you, Dev, for putting in some extra hours on this presentation.
Oh my God, I was so excited about it. It was like my treat to work on at the end of the day. Okay, let me get back in there. So sorry. Oh my gosh. Okay, so if you feel like perhaps you are feeling addicted to having poor time management, the first step is believing you can change. So just like if you are quitting smoking cigarettes, you have to first decide you want to quit, believe you can quit, and then start identifying as someone who doesn't smoke cigarettes. I personally identify as someone who has great time management skills. I've always identified that way. It's not always true, but I tell myself that, and that helps me move forward. Also, it's helpful to get support if you really struggle with time management. There are coaches. Whitney's a coach. There are therapists. Heck, you can go to a hypnotherapist. This is really, really hard work, and you have to undo a lot of things. You do not have to do it alone. Okay, so let's talk about thoughts. And I want to emphasize that some of the thoughts we have around time management that are not helpful are not truths, they are based in trauma. So raise your hand or maybe put like a thumbs up emoji or something in the chat if you have ever had the thought, if I say yes to everyone, no one will be disappointed in me. I think a lot of people feel that way, but a new thought is, if I set kind boundaries, that's good for everyone. Because then I'm not spreading myself thin and giving everyone a little slice of myself. And then you can take care of you. Put a little thumbs up in the chat if you've ever had the thought, if I don't do it all, I will be a failure. New thought. Every human is different and every path is different. You are the one who defines success. There's always going to be someone who seems like they're doing more than you. So trying to do it all is not helpful.
And just to let people know, Devin, sorry to interrupt, that on the bottom of your screen, if you're on a computer, there's reactions, and that's how you can kind of do thumbs up, thumbs down.
Oh, fun. Cool. I did not even know that. Thanks, Minda. Old thought. If I flake on the commitments I've already made, I won't be a person of integrity. New thought. Life happens, and I'm allowed to take care of myself. When I first started my first business, I was so excited and I want to meet everyone. I'm an extrovert, I'm really social, and I bought really expensive tickets with money I didn't have to like all the networking events in Portland. And the first 3 were super fun. And then by the 4th one, I was totally exhausted. And I didn't want to flake out on these commitments. But I realized if I went and I was exhausted or wasn't feeling my best self, there was no point in going. And I think that happens a lot when we go to meetings we don't feel up to going to, or when we overbook ourselves, we're not giving our friends everything, we're not giving our clients everything. Sometimes it's better just to cancel and take mental health day, and people will understand, and people respect and appreciate when you take care of yourself. Old thought, put a thumbs up if you've ever thought, if I don't say yes to everything, I might miss an amazing opportunity. This is one that I really struggled with for so many years because I wanted to do it all. But I made a new thought. If I'm intentional with what I say yes to, only the right opportunities will be the ones that I commit to, and then they're more valuable. Old thought. If I don't work enough, I won't have enough income to sustain myself. Money mindset is a whole presentation on its own. But I notice a lot of people overwork themselves because they're like, gosh, I have money. And yeah, everyone has different financial stress. But I wonder if we thought to ourselves, there are many different ways to make money. Trading my time is not the only one. Or maybe I do trade my time, but I raise my price. Or I ask my employer for a raise. There are different ways to feel financially sustainable, including maybe I look at where I'm spending my money. Maybe I spend less and live on less and learn to be happy with less. There are other ways to satisfy that without working ourselves to death. So, as you hopefully continue in your own journey, when you have a thought that kind of feels related to time that maybe isn't helpful, try and think of a new thought to replace it. Okay. I also want to stop here and kind of pause and just say, this is super hard work. Please be gentle with yourself. Time management is an art form. It is not an exact science. And it's keeping it on top of your time. It's constantly changing because your life is constantly changing. So you kind of have to renew constantly. It requires you to pay attention to it. It requires some work. But it does get easier over time as you kind of find your rhythm. For example, if you're someone who overcommits or, thinks something will take an hour but really takes 3 hours, you'll eventually get a sense of how much time you actually have to offer. For that same example, if I have a project that I think will take an hour, I might schedule 3 hours into my calendar instead of cutting myself short and then feeling overwhelmed. I like to have space. Also, things happen. It takes time. Like life gets crazy. Sometimes you randomly are in a pandemic and then also protests are happening and there's also everything is on fire. Like it's okay when things go awry. So just always be kind to yourself because there's no such thing as perfection. Like no one is perfectly productive all the time. And if they tell you they are, that's kind of scary. Okay, whew. Now let's get to something that's maybe a little bit more tangible. Steps to having ultimate time management. So this is the steps that I personally take. This is my recipe for success. Daniela Laporte says, whatever is on your plate got there because you said yes to it. Okay, so here are my 4 steps. First, you really, really, really need to know yourself. Then we're going to talk about tracking your time. We're going to talk about energy cycles. And then we're going to put it all together and schedule it. We're going to make a schedule. Okay. So first, the very first thing is it's really important to know, like, where are you starting from? Maybe you're neurodivergent and you have ADHD, and maybe you need to learn more about how to move through the world in that way. I have a client, my very first meeting with him, he said, I have really bad ADHD and I have a really bad dyslexia. And I said, okay, thank you for telling me that. He is super successful, runs his business. He never seems overwhelmed. Because he shared that with me and shared with me about how he works, I know that if he doesn't answer my email within an hour, it's lost and I need to text him or email him again. Because of his dyslexia, I looked up like how to write emails for people with dyslexia so it's easy for them to read. And now I just write all my emails that way because why don't we want all emails to be easy to read? He really knows himself and he uses it to his advantage. Maybe you have a health issue or a disability that perhaps affects your energy or something like that, like maybe you're chronically fatigued. I had another client who suffers, she's chronically fatigued, and some days are great, some days are not great. And so what we did is we made her baseline schedule. We made it based on what her really fatigued days feel like. And then on the days when she's feeling great, boom, she has bonus energy, she gets bonus things done. But she just knows herself well, and I know how that affects her life, and we work around it, and it works. Maybe you have home conditions that are not ideal. Maybe you don't have a dedicated workspace. Maybe you have lots of kids running around. There could be any number of things that kind of create an obstacle for you. This does not mean you can't get a handle on time. It just means you're starting somewhere different. We all are starting somewhere different. That client who I mentioned has really intense ADHD. He also has like 5 kids and he's really busy. I have not once ever heard him say, God, I feel so overwhelmed, or, he's never like seemed exhausted, because he really, really knows how to approach time from his specific lifestyle. Okay, now I want to talk about what motivates you. So this is the Enneagram. We're coming back to the Enneagram. It's a personality typing. What I love about the Enneagram, unlike the Myers-Briggs, are things like the Myers-Briggs, which is based on like what you do. The Enneagram is really based on what motivates you. So if you don't know your type and you want to know, like email me after the show, we'll talk about it. But if you don't know your type, I want you to just think about like, what motivates me? So just a little bit about the Enneagram. This is kind of like the Enneagram map. The Enneagram is an ancient system that's been found across all kinds of cultures all over the world. We don't know exactly where it came from, but modern Western psychology has kind of adapted it to different disciplines. And I think it's really important to know what motivates you. So for example, I'm a 7. I'm the enthusiast. I'm motivated by freedom and autonomy and fun. And so what that means in regards to my time is I like to feel free in my time. I like to have space between meetings. I like to have breaks. I don't ever want to feel like stressed and, oh my God, I have this back to back. It totally happens, but it's not what motivates me. It doesn't feel good to me. And also I'm motivated by financial freedom because of that. And so sometimes I will work a lot harder knowing that I want to retire early. On the other side of the Enneagram, type 2, we have the helper. My 2 best friends are 2s. A lot of my clients are 2s. I love 2s. I think I attract them. And what I notice about most 2s in my life is they are so wonderful and so trying to help everyone all the time that guess what? They are committing to everything. They're saying yes. They want to be helpful. They have an automatic yes. And that causes them to feel really overwhelmed and get really burnt out. So the 2 needs to find a way to help themselves. And so the Enneagram, time management is just yet another thing that the Enneagram can be used as a tool for. Okay, understanding your values. So if you've been coming to the Rio events this whole year, I think in January, I think the very first one was based on values. So if you were there, you are ahead of the game. You've already done a version of this exercise. This is something that I just started doing years ago whenever I felt overwhelmed and kind of lost, is I would write all my values down on sticky notes. And this is something you can do too. This is kind of my version of the exercise. So the first thing you want to do is spend some time thinking about what is important to you, what your values are. Write them all down on sticky notes. And then you arrange them in order of priority. And here I want to stop and point out, priority is singular. You cannot have plural priorities. That is an oxymoron. There's only one priority. So when you're thinking about your values, you need to put them in a hierarchy. Because, skipping ahead a little bit, there will come a point in time where you're asked to do 2 different things at once. Like maybe someone has asked you to come to a social event with your friends or family, and then maybe you have a business event, and maybe they're at the same time. And at one point in my life, business was my highest priority when I was first starting my business. And so when those conflicts occurred, I could easily say my highest priority right now is starting my business, sorry. The reason it's good to redo those is because your values sometimes change. Mine certainly do. I would say the reverse is true now. If there was a social event or a family event, I would prioritize that over perhaps a business event. So that's why we need to prioritize, because it helps us remove decision fatigue when we need to make decisions about how we spend our time. And then a little bonus, I want you to take a guess at how much of your time goes into each category. Because step 3 is to track your time. Some people feel, ooh, they don't like to do this because it seems tedious, and like it can be. But I beg of you, please, 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 if you've never done this before, just try it out. I like to use Toggle. This is what Toggle looks like. It's free, it's online. It's really easy to toggle between different tasks and like type in what you're doing to track. I've also in the past just used good old pen and paper. You get a notebook, you put the date at the top, and then you list out the time in increments of like 15 to 30 minutes, which sounds crazy, but I swear to God it works. And then you set a timer for 15 or 30 minutes. Every time the timer goes off, you just jot down quickly what you're doing. Just try it for a week, try it for a day, try it for a morning. Just try it if you've never done this before, because you will be surprised with the information you gather. You really will. What was most surprising to me when I first started doing this is, wow, I have a lot more dead time than I thought I did. I felt so busy and so overwhelmed, only to find out like, oh, I was like spending way more time on social media than I really thought I was. This is also a good way to see like where the obstacles in your day are, where you can find patterns of like, oh, this is kind of a sticky point that maybe I need to put attention on and kind of figure out a different way to do this part of my schedule. And then see how surprised you are by the results, and see if the results, if you are using Toggle, they can easily be categorized. See how they matched your values. I've even done, this is if you want to get really into it, when I used to do pen and paper, I would sometimes highlight with different colored highlighters, and I could visually see like, oh, I said that like this part of my life is the most important, like maybe health is number 2, but I'm not seeing like that amount of time being spent on this thing that I say is so important. So it's a good way to see if your values match how you're actually spending your time. Okay, now we're going to talk about energy cycles. So this portion of the presentation is all things that I learned from the book When by Daniel Pink. It's a super good book. This is the PDF that you'll get after this presentation. There's a list of books and this is on there. I highly, highly, highly recommend reading it. It's such a good book. And there are so many juicy tidbits in that book. This is just like a teeny tiny little bit of one little part. But I think it's important to talk about, like, there are different types of energy. So they're classified into 3 different types. There's the early bird, like me. I, without an alarm, will just get up at 5 a.m. and I get sleepy real early. Then there's the night owl. We all know the night owls. They are up at night. They're usually creative. That's their time to shine. Third bird is most of the population. That's everybody else who has the quote unquote normal schedule. So if you are an early bird or a third bird, you're going to have a big peak in the morning, and then you're going to have that afternoon trough. I like to call it the afternoon sleepies. And then you'll have a little rebound the second half of the afternoon. If you're a night owl, unfortunately, that is reverse, where you wake up, it's really hard to wake up, and then you still get the afternoon sleepies, and then you have this peak at night or in the late evening. And what you'll notice is, regardless of your type, we all get the afternoon sleepies. So that trough in the early afternoon can be called the Bermuda Triangle of our day. We're all tired during that time. That's why Spain had siestas. Like, we just need a nap. Because here's the thing, if you don't take a break and try and power and muscle through the day, your brain and or your body will take one for you. For me, that looks like if I think I'm gonna be cool one day and like work through my lunch break and just get it done, hashtag hustle, whatever. By 2 p.m., I'm just like scrolling on Instagram like, oh my God, how did I get here? My brain totally melts. The rest of my day is ruined. Some people I've seen this as, wow, maybe they can power through the whole day. Maybe they can power through the whole day for weeks. And then they physically crash and it's really hard. And all of a sudden it's your day off and you're crying and you don't know why. You have to take a break. And that break needs to be a true break. It needs to be autonomous. You need to choose what that break is, and you need to be detached from your work. Please don't eat at your desk during your lunch break. And we'll talk more about what a true break is later on. Russell Foster, a neuroscientist and chronobiologist at the University of Oxford, said, the performance change between the daily high point, your peak, and the daily low point, the trough, can be equivalent to the effect on the performance of drinking the legal limit of alcohol. What does that mean? That means the difference between the peak in your day and the trough in your day, the difference in performance is the equivalent of being sober and a little drunk. So just like I wouldn't do work for my clients when I'm a little drunk, I'm also not going to do work for my clients between like noon and 2 p.m. That would be rude. And I'm not functioning at that time. So I'll either wait for my rebound or I'll wait for the next day in the morning when my brain is just on fire. And now we're going to put it all together and you can start to make a schedule. So this is an example of my schedule. I want to reiterate again, everyone has different responsibilities, different jobs, different levels of autonomy over their schedule. I work for myself, so I have full control over my schedule. I did that on purpose. So this is what kind of like a typical week in my life looks like. I love using Google Calendar because it's super easy to see visually and color code, and I can move things around really easily. As you can see, all the pink is kind of like my me time, like I have exercise or my lunch break, or I'm skating or I'm reading, or it's like social time. And then the rest is different clients. And you'll notice I have big chunks of time blocked out, bigger chunks in the morning, because that's when I'm really ready to go and firing on all cylinders. And then I have a long break, a true break, and then I have my little rebound in the afternoon when I just get a few more little things done. I personally think it's important to visually see your time. Maybe other people are different. But I I personally like to look at my calendar and say, oh, I don't even need to read what's on my calendar. I can see where the open spaces are. So one of the reasons this is helpful is, let's say, it's Wednesday, and a client contacts me and they're like, hey, I have this big project, it needs to be due tomorrow. I can look at my calendar and say, actually, I don't have time tomorrow because that time is already dedicated. Maybe I have time blocked out because I'm on a retainer and I owe a client a certain amount of hours. Maybe I have a project due and I block out time to work on that project. So you also see another reason for the big blocks is I think time, or also known as calendar blocking, is really important to get into the flow. It takes your brain lots of energy to like power down from a task and then power up to a new task again. If you're just focused on one task and all other distractions are gone, it's a lot easier. There in the PDF, there's a link to a video by Jordan Page. She's a YouTuber, and she gives she talks about how when you're in school, in high school, you're in math class, you're just thinking about math, and then the bell rings, math is done, and then you're on to science. And that's, I think, a really helpful way to go about the day. Also, this is an art. Sometimes you need to move things around. That being said, this is also a way for you to set boundaries and stick to them. It's easy to stick to boundaries when it's a meeting with another person. It's harder to stick to boundaries when it's something that you just need to get done. And so if you're making yourself a calendar, you really need to stick to your own boundaries and hold yourself accountable. Very important. Okay, so what? So we all know there's that machine at the arcade where you drop coins in because you're trying to get enough coins on the machine to like push some over so you can get lots of more coins, which of course never works. But I see time kind of like that big metal thing that's always pushing. Every day comes and maybe you go back to sleep and then the day comes again. And the coins are like our commitments. Because the thing is, commitments and coins are, maybe always falling into our laps. There always are going to be things that get pushed off the edge. Because here's the honest to goodness truth. Things are going to fall off no matter what. Time management is choosing which is going to fall off instead of letting it just randomly get pushed off. So I'd like to implore everyone, please stop pretending like we can have all the coins and do everything. We can't. We need to choose what we spend our time doing and what we let fall off of our plate. Okay, we made it to the end. We have 20 minutes, cool. So I want to talk about some tips, some tools in self-care. Are there any questions at this point? Wonderful. Okay. Miles Davis once said, time is the main thing, it's the only thing. I don't really know what that means, but I wanted to jazz up my presentation, so I threw it in. All right, some tips. Again, boundaries, protect your calendar. So here's a hot tip for you. If someone comes to you asking for anything, say, let me check my calendar and get back to you. So this does two things. One, it stops the automatic yes. And two, it gives you the chance to just pause and think, okay, do I have time for, let me look actually at my calendar and see if I have time for this. Also, do I want to do this? Do I have the energy to do this? Let's think about those before we say yes also. The second thing I want you to learn to say is, ooh, this week or this month is really full for me. Can we circle back? So sometimes it's true, well, it probably usually is true, your month is really full and they need to circle back. And at that point, you can put a little notification in your calendar or your to-do list or whatever, like, hey, circle back with so-and-so, next month. But more often than not, this is a polite way of kind of giving people the slip. Of course, ideally, in an ideal world, we could just say no whenever we wanted to, but polite society kind of prevents us from doing that. I love this month is full for me, can we circle back? Because it kind of puts it on the other person to circle back. And 99% of the time, they totally forget. So it's really easy for you to be like, they never circled back. It's a total get out of jail free card. And it really helps you protect your calendar. also want to really emphasize things don't just take time, they take energy too. So let's say you know for sure, like this task takes an hour, this task takes an hour, and this task takes an hour, and I have 3 hours to work. But the first task was like a really, really hard meeting with my boss, and now I'm emotionally drained, and oh my God, I can't do these other tasks now. And then we feel terrible about ourselves. Please take into consideration like your emotional energy, how hard the task is, how brain melty it is, and plan according to that too. For example, I love going to therapy. My therapy appointments are 50 minutes long, but I block out 2 hours. I want time before to make sure I get there early. I want lots of time in the waiting room to like transition from my real life to like this very personal, vulnerable time. And I also want time blocked out after in case I need to like, you know, digest whatever I just talked about. It takes a lot of emotional energy to go to therapy. And so think about that when you're planning your schedule. All right, here's some like actual physical tools. I've already talked about Toggle. I love this. I think it's helpful, again, to just toggle or to track your time in general. But if you're someone who needs to track your time for your job, Toggle is super easy and it's free. Google Calendar is my favorite calendar. Again, you can drag things around, you can color code things. I know some people like an actual like planner to write in, and you know, if that's your jam, do it, feels good. But it can be hard to see things if it's like just written in a line. So something to think about. But again, if you are a pen and paper person, please be who you are. Acuity, a scheduler. Okay, so some people, if you're in a business like mine, or maybe you're a professional organizer or something where people are scheduling sessions with you, Acuity is awesome. But even if you're just like a busy person who maybe doesn't have sessions, but like has a lot of meetings, Acuity will change everything for you. It connects to your Google Calendar. There's your Google Calendar again. And so instead of emailing back and forth, like, when are you available? No, when are you available? No, when are you available? And then like, hey, following up, all that nonsense. You just send them a link and you're like, here's my link, pick the time that's best for you. This is when I'm available. And you don't have to look at your calendar, and they're not going to try and schedule a time for you when you're not available. And I see Acuity kind of like my bouncer, where like if people are trying to get all up in my week and they look at my Acuity scheduler and they're like, you don't have an appointment for 3 weeks. I'm like, well, I'm 3 weeks busy. Sorry, that's what Acuity says. Okay, focus. So let's say we blocked out the time and now we're sitting down. How do we even focus? Here are some things that I like to use. The Pomodoro method. The Pomodoro method is really good for studying and learning. The idea is that you have 25 minutes on, focused, 5-minute break. You do that 3 times, and then you get a 15-minute break. Try it out. Pomofocus.io is a timer that does a little beep beep. And so it does the timing for you. Try it out. Sometimes if you're really in the flow, taking a break every 25 minutes is a no-go. But sometimes it's kind of nice to have the reminder to like stand up and like look away from the computer. Body double or an accountability partner. There's also, if you go to the events page on Big Rocks Organizing, scroll way back. Actually did this today because I'm looking for my own accountability partner. Whitney has a presentation on finding an accountability partner. But also, I would suggest, if you really have a hard time focusing, getting an actual body double. I learned about this when I worked with kids, and then I learned about it again as a professional organizer. The idea of a body double is having someone next to you who's focused, just working. And something about having a focused person working next to you makes you want to like focus more. It's harder to like, you know, goof off when the person next to you is so focused. Quick note, do not do this with another unfocused person. It will be a disaster. You have to find a focused person to hold you accountable. Binaural beats. You can find these at the website brain.fm. If you also type in binaural beats into Spotify, there's lots of playlists. There's no like research proving that binaural beats do anything, but I think they work, so I love them, and a lot of people find them really helpful. The idea is that you want your brain to be in a certain brain wave to do certain things. So like I think sleeping is theta, Studying might be gamma. I might be totally wrong, but the idea is that you want the waves of the noise you're listening to in your headphones to match that wave, and it kind of like shifts your brain. Again, there's no research confirming this, but like I think it really works, and so I would recommend trying it. Placebo effect works 25% of the time. A watch. This one, I don't know. I always wear a watch. I always have worn a watch. I think one of the reasons I'm so good at being on time is I'm like constantly aware of what time it is, and a watch is a really way to just always check the time. Also, if you're in a meeting, like you can like casually check the time without being rude. And most importantly, if you're using your phone to check the time, every time you go to check the time, you're also checking your notifications, and now you're getting pulled into your phone, and that's not very helpful for focus. Okay, I already talked about calendar blocking. Super important to give yourself time to get into the flow when you're working on certain tasks or projects. The Eisenhower matrix, again, look at the link in the PDF. This is a little hard to explain without visuals, but it's a matrix with 4 boxes, and you're categorizing things by being urgent and important, or urgent and not important, or important and not urgent, or not urgent and not important. I used to separate my to-do list like this, like for 6 months I did this, and I would rewrite my to-do list every week, and like, which of these are really important and urgent? And oh my gosh, I didn't even realize like this isn't really urgent or important, and I can get rid of it entirely. And if you're feeling overwhelmed with your to-do list, it can really help you prioritize what to do. 2-minute rule. I love this one for email, but you can use it for anything. David Allen talks about this. If you can do something and you think it will take less than 2 minutes, do it right now, get it over with. If it takes longer, like maybe responding to an email will take longer than 2 minutes and you're in your email calendar block, then put on your to-do list, respond to so-and-so, here's the subject line of the email, that email gets filed away. And that way it's on your to-do list. But if it's under than 2 minutes, just get it done. Eat That Frog. This is also a book by David Allen. This is loosely based on a Mark Twain quote where he says, like, if you have to eat a frog, eat it first thing, and then the rest of your day will be a lot better. So if there's an item on your to-do list that is like a gross frog that you hate, eat it first thing in the morning. If you have 2 frogs, you have to eat the ugliest one first. And there's a lot of other ideas about how to prioritize your tasks that way. I like that one because I'm really good at procrastinating things that I don't want to do, like we all are. Okay, and the final thing I want to emphasize is taking really good care of yourself. I actually think this is the most important thing you can do for good time management. If you forget everything else, please remember this. So we're talking about true restorative breaks. So this is again from the book When by Daniel Pink. This is all based on science and studies and research, etc. So something beats nothing. A 2-minute break beats no break. Moving beats stationary. It's good to go for walks. The book actually says that social is better than solo, and that resonated with me because I'm such a social person. But you know what? Some people are introverts, or maybe you have a really social job where you're working with people. And so maybe you need to be alone. Take that into consideration. And detachment. You have to detach fully. Like you need to leave your desk. You cannot be checking your emails. Please don't eat your lunch in front of the computer. Please have lunch separate from your work. And you also need autonomy. If you are someone like me who maybe worked in restaurants when you were younger, or maybe you work there now, I don't know. Or like I was a cashier for a long time at Whole Foods, and you know, obviously they had to give us breaks, but like there's something about taking a break in like your like employee area where you're still just at the place you work that doesn't really feel good. So having the ability to choose what your break is really helpful to having a truly restorative break. Oasis days. This is, oh my God, it has been life-changing. I have Oasis days on Sundays. This is based on a book I read like 2 years ago called An Oasis in Time, How a Day Off Can Save Your Life. Oasis days are based on Shabbat. So how I do Oasis days is on Sunday, I like maybe check my email, get all my things going, tie up any loose ends, I mean, and then I turn off my computer and I turn off my phone and I just do whatever I want. And sometimes that means I'm just like sitting on the couch, like staring, listening to records and like not being productive, just staring out into space. Sometimes that means I'm just like walking around the city getting lost. Sometimes that means I made plans with a friend, and to get to that friend, like we have to both be on time because I don't have a phone. And also if I get lost, I have to ask a stranger. But your Oasis day can be anything you want. When I first started my first business, professional organizing, like, you know, most entrepreneurs experience this. Like I was just working on it all the time. There were no days off because there's so much to do. The to-do list never ends. And my brain got really fuzzy. Everything got blurry and my brain just felt like it was melting. But now that I say, no matter what is happening, I have one day that is just for me. Wow, it feels really good. And then I'm ready to go back to work on Monday and I feel restored. And so I would highly recommend having your own Oasis, or even if it's Oasis afternoon, highly recommend. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much. Again, there's my contact info at the bottom. Let's be friends. I'd love it. Any final questions?
I was wondering how you feel about the snooze feature on Gmail. So when there's things that pop up, like sometimes I'll snooze them, but I find that when they show back up in my inbox, I don't want to do them then either.
Oh my God, thank you for bringing it up. I know lots of people that get really good use out of that, but I have never done it for your same reason. I know I'll just keep snoozing it over and over again. And that's why I really love, I have a folder actually labeled reference that like is the top folder in my Gmail. And so I make that email a to-do on my to-do list. And because I know that I won't skip a to-do on my to-do list, but I will totally ignore a snooze over and over. But that being said, some people do really well with it. And if that works for you, you should totally do it.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
I included the PDF of the resources in the chat. I also will send it off in the next couple of days with the recording of this, but in case you're one right now, it's there for you.
Yay.
Devin, this is just such good information. And while not all of it is new, sometimes it's an opportunity to reset, reassess, and then really hunker down and be willing to commit to it. I really appreciate this.
Wow, thank you so much. That's so kind. Yeah, I'm glad you found it useful.
Yeah.
And friend put in the chat that they learned some interesting concepts and they say thank you. Sean says great presentation and tips. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Any other questions for Devin while we have her for 3 whole more minutes?
When do you know it's time to hire someone to help you? Because I often feel like people I talk to who are feeling like me think we're too busy to do that thing, but it's the thing that will save us from our future self.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's like some people have like specific like quantitative ways to know when it's time to hire someone. For me, when I knew it was time to hire someone was when I felt so busy, it didn't feel good anymore. Because hiring someone new is an investment and it takes a lot of time up front, but then it saves you so much time down the road. So for me, I think it's a feeling of, I do not have enough time to do all of these things. Yeah. So I don't know if that's a very good answer, but that's how I hired someone. It's like, I'm too busy.
I would totally agree with that, Deb. And I think a lot of us as entrepreneurs wait too long to hire that support person, and like the wheels are coming off the bus or the seams are coming apart, and we wish that we would have hired somebody sooner.
Yeah, absolutely. And hiring someone is one of those things. Like, I'm also a big fan of SOPs, standard operating procedures, or like like an operations manual, which I know Big Rocks has because I used to work on it. It was so fun. That's something like writing out, documenting all your procedures takes a lot of time up front, but then it saves you in the future because you don't have to train someone new. They can just read the document, or you can reference it. Everyone's on the same page. You don't have to like reinvent the wheel over and over again. So yeah, it's scary to hire someone new, but it was a good decision for me.
You could do video SOPs too if writing them out feels too daunting.
Exactly. What I do is I make Loom videos of what I'm doing, and then I have my assistant write out the SOP for me.
Even better. Well, thank you so much, Deb, for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thank you.
In September, we're going to be talking about right-sizing our relationships, and we have a counselor, Kara Kazemba, coming for that. She's amazing, and her presentation is amazing. So I hope you'll come back and join us the third Wednesday in September from 4 to 5. And Deb, if you'll put your information in the chat again, let us know, because if people have questions, they want to reach out to you one-on-one, you're totally open to that, right? You want to make more friends, so.
I love making friends. Yes, and I also have something special coming up that I'm going to announce tomorrow. So if you want to get on my newsletter, you can find out what it is.
Oh, well, thank you so much, everybody, for spending your late afternoon with us. Hopefully this is not in your trough, but in your rebound. And I hope you have a wonderful evening. Then we'll see.
Created a rebound. Whitney just created a rebound. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, ladies.